here with local poet Cynthia Anderson, author of the new book from Troy Needles Press entitled Waking Life. Cynthia, many of your books feature photography by your husband Bill Dahl. How does this collaboration take place, and what is the context in your new book, Waking Life?
Yeah, there's actually two of these collaborations in Waking Life. They're from a series we call Mythic Rockscapes, and one is on Barker Dam Trail, and the other is on Hidden Valley. Um, what we do with these collaborations is the images have to come first. Has to be an image before I can write a poem about it. Bill went out and found some really unique and interesting shots along Barker Dam Trail, and that got us going. We were really happy with how it turned out, and so we went ahead and did another one on Hidden Valley. And our goal with all that was to bring something new and different to those very familiar, iconic places in the park by um, giving them a mythological dimension, telling stories about the rocks, the trees, the sky, and so forth, but especially the rocks because we're rock people. So.
And many of your poems seem deeply involved in the processes of nature. How do you think that poetry itself relates to nature?
Well, I have a quote at the beginning of Waking Life from Mary Oliver, and she says, "This is the first, the wildest, and the wisest thing I know, that the soul exists and it's made entirely out of attentiveness." So for me, it's that attentiveness that's the connection between poetry and nature. Um, for me, I'm very interested in the environment that I live in. I learn more about myself by writing about, the natural environment. So, and in coming to the desert, and when I first got here about 9 years ago, I had what was for me a pretty profound experience, which was that there was a period of time where I had these pretty intense encounters with animals and birds and other creatures, and it was like it felt like they were showing themselves to me and almost asking to be written about. So I promised them that I would write about them, and that's what I've done and what I continue to do. I really rather write, prefer to write about nature rather than to write about my own personal angst, though I do, in fact, write about my own personal angst too. So.
Well, your poetry
Yeah.
does a wonderful job of bringing nature to light and to the reader.
Thank you.
And do you have any advice for young poets?
Yes, as a matter of fact. Having been one myself, I could have used a lot of advice at the beginning, which I didn't get. But I think it's really important to spend enough quiet time with yourself to trust those impulses that just kind of arise from who knows where, and follow those, use those. There's an essay by William Stafford, the poet. It's called A Way of Writing, and I would highly recommend that essay. It's one of my favorites. I go back to it again and again, and it's very much a proponent of that idea that you sit, you let what comes up come up, and you just follow that wherever it leads you. Another thing for young poets, and this took me a while to discover, if there's a poet you really like a lot, then find out who that poet's favorite poets are and read those poets. And in that way, you will find yourself the member of a tribe of sorts, of poets who have the same maybe sensibility, not the same style necessarily, but a sensibility or feeling. So that's, I think, really important to realize that you have almost the support of all those who came before you. Yeah. And one last thing, which is to paraphrase Mary Oliver, at the end of the day, there's really only one life that you can save, and that's your own life. So poetry is a time-honored and time-tested way to save your own skin. So write like your life depended on it, because it probably does. Certainly did for me. So
Wonderful. Cynthia's new book is Waking Life. You can find a link to the book through Choir Needles Press below the video. Thank you, Cynthia.
thanks, John Paul.